Good morning. I'd like to thank Professor Ranjan Mittal to give me an opportunity to interact with people like you who are going to be our future of this country and indeed the world. My topic for today is about leadership and NGO, an interesting journey. So there are three components in this topic. One is leadership, one is the NGO, and the third part is the journey. Now, I am a cardiologist who has practiced globally for the last 30 years and has seen a lot of ups and downs in the innovations of technology in the cardiological field. So I'd like to have this as an interactive lecture if it's possible. So may I ask you, would anybody know what the cost of a heart surgery is in India today? How much? 2 to 5 lakhs. Yeah. That is in the top corporate hospitals. Average is about 2 lakhs. And the cost of the surgery, say about 15 to 20 years ago, how much was it? Any idea? Same heart surgery is actually the double of what it used to be today. So, given the fact that the surgical cost has come down to half what it used to be a decade ago, and the technology has actually trebled or quadrupled in the last 10 years from where we are say maybe in the 1990s and 2000. So that says a lot about what cardiological process has gone through. So if we talk about the Indian landscape, about the health scenario, the Indian government spends about 1% of its GDP on public health care, which is awfully low. And overall expenditure on health is about 5% of the GDP, where the Asian average is actually 6%. And the number of physicians per 1,000 population is 0.5, which is one of the lowest in the world. If we compare to even some developing countries and underdeveloped countries, still their number of physicians per 1,000 populations is close to 2 to 3. So the recommendations for the WHO is about a doctor per 1 doctor per 1,000, and at the moment we are actually 1 doctor per 1,700 patients. So we have about 6 to 6.5 lakh doctors available in India, where we actually require about 4 lakhs more by 2020. And the doctors who are required to be spread between 50,000 doctors in the primary health centers, about 80,000 doctors in the community health centers, 1.1 lakh doctors for the sub-centers, and another 50,000 doctors for the medical college hospitals. And 4 lakh doctors which we have a gap is very, very difficult actually to bridge. And this is in the whole Indian scenario. So what is the next steps? We needed a change of how we think and how our health system functions. And what could bring the change? Do you think it could be a policy change in the way we are functioning at the moment? Do you think that we require to produce more doctors, have more medical colleges, and have more doctors coming up? But I don't think that that is the way forward, because we have populations increasing at the same time, and we cannot cope up or match with the number of people who are going to come compared to the doctors we are going to produce. Because you have to understand that medical profession is such that just by producing numbers is not enough. You require quality to actually deliver, number one. And number two, more importantly, you require to actually have the motivation to deliver as well. So is it the leadership in implementing new ideas and processes? The previous presentations which you gave was on Arvind High Hospital, and it was all actually about leadership, about a man who actually thought about what could be done. Nobody thought about it. Maybe a lot of people thought about it, but nobody had the guts or the motivation to implement it. And I believe that people like him in the 70s and 80s, when they started off in a very modest manner, and where they are today is actually kudos to the leadership which they have. So I have with me today one of the leaders of the heart care or the cardiac care in the Indian scenario. And who do you think could be a leader? One with a compelling personal history, one who has a distinctive profile of beliefs, and impressive accomplishments in the face of odds. So these are the three things which actually define a leader. So Dr. Devi Prasad Shetty is a very well-known cardiac surgeon, and more importantly, one of the most impressive leaders in the medical field I have ever come across. And believe me, I've been to a lot of countries and worked in a lot of countries, and I've not seen many people who actually have the vision of what Dr. Shetty had. And more importantly, what Dr. Shetty dreamt during the 1990s, he was actually able to deliver today when we stand in 2016. And he thinks the power of a leader is not in the asset or the bank balance. It's the number of talented, passionate people who are willing to follow the leader to build an institution. A person who has the loyalty of the maximum number of these people is the most powerful person. And that's my definition is his leader. And Dr. Shetty's model, unlike the Arvind Eye Hospital model, is not actually wholly a family model. People like us who have been associated with Dr. Shetty since the 1990s have stuck around. The attrition rate in Dr. Shetty's institutions is extremely low. People who go to him and work with him actually stick to him nearly for the rest of their career. And that's an excellent quality of a leader. And his vision of Narayana Health, which is his brainchild, is an affordable, quality healthcare for the masses. It is not a subsidized healthcare, it is not an inexpensive healthcare, but it is something which you can afford, and that is very, very important while you are delivering healthcare. So in 1989, Dr. Shetty, after he returned from UK, he joined the B.M. Birla Heart Research Foundation in Calcutta, and then he moved on. And he understood that a lot of well-equipped hospitals are unaffordable by the underprivileged sections of the society. So in 2000, he promoted the Rabindranath Tagore International Institute of Cardiac Sciences, and in 2001, he moved on to Bangalore, where he actually has the Narayana Health Institute. So Mother Teresa was, now Saint Teresa, was his inspiration. He was her doctor in the last 5 years of her life, and Dr. Shetty says that I truly believe she was not an ordinary human being like us. She had a true gift, being able to bring a smile to people. And she said to Dr. Shetty that hands that serve are more sacred than the lips that pray. And she was truly an inspiration. And whatever his observations, he thought that 80% of the healthcare expenses were borne out of pocket, which was actually true and probably still is true, because our insurance model in this country is extremely low compared to, say, anywhere in the Western country or any developed country. He also found that 47% of the rural and 37% of the urban population either borrowed money or sold assets to pay for medical expenses. And mind you, the cardiac care is an extremely expensive proposition. Any heart surgery would cost, even today, close to about 2 lakh rupees at least in any hospitals. That's the basic cost. It could be more. And only 120,000 heart surgeries used to be performed in 1990s, where there was a need for actually double of that. So his beliefs were the quality of healthcare with low cost. That was one of the things. And medical treatment of the highest quality should be available even to those who could not afford it. Therefore, the cost of the surgery had to come down. So whenever we used to talk about these kind of models and has to have meetings together with the administrations, with the managers. He was actually a manager's or administrator's nightmare, because he used to have a vision and he wanted to be implemented, and the rest actually were the people in the background who had to work around it to deliver it. So he was kind of a dictatorial thing when it came to his vision about what he wanted to deliver. The people around him, the medical professionals, also understood that if you work with Dr. Shetty, as with the Arvind High Hospital, your volumes would be high, the skill levels would develop, but your take home would be much lower compared to, say, any other hospitals in those days. And what he said was very important, that charity is not scalable, but a sound business model is. So his model was to subsidize patients with a lesser paying capacity, the way Arvind High Hospital did. He had private wards where patients paid, and he used to subsidize patients. And in 2004, the proportion of patients who paid NH full price to those who could not afford to pay was about 60 to 40. Again, the volume game was the key to the whole area without compromising on the quality. He performed, the number of heart procedures performed every day was almost 8 times the average of other Indian hospitals. When we used to start our career, or even the middle of our career, we used to see that heart care or the heart ICUs were always in cubicles where patients were isolated. Dr. Shetty was the first person who actually devised ways of actually opening up the cubicles. It was so that if you had 5 patients, one besides another, they just divided by a curtain if required, you had lesser number of personals, nursing personals or the paramedics to actually watch over the patients. So that was the first kind of steps where it broke the myths about subsidizing the heart care. If you spent less on personals, if you spent less on equipments, if you spent less on other areas, and if your volumes are high, obviously the cost would automatically come down. The other thing which was very revolutionary on those days were actually the machines. A cath lab machine where we perform our angioplasties and angiograms would cost anything around 5 crores in those days. 5 crores. The HPs and the Philips and the Siemens used to charge those money. And today, when Dr. Shetty's hospital, Narayana Health, has at least 50 to 60 or 70 to 75 cath lab machines all across India, we don't buy machines anymore. The company, they park the machines and we give them a monthly rent, and the maintenance cost is theirs, and they take money from us. So that's the way we actually operate nowadays. So the purchase of machines, not only in the high sector areas, but also in the labs and different areas, are all on a rental basis. So it's a kind of a cost sharing and a profit sharing we go by. And the other important thing was the using of generic drugs. So today we have Kiran Majumdar who have tied up, and our drugs in the NH groups are mostly generic, and obviously the cost of the drugs are much, much less. This is actually one area in life where things have actually halved in terms of cost from what it used to be in the 90s or 2000. Now coming to the hospital which started it all was Rabindranath Tagore International Institute of Cardiac Sciences in Kolkata, and it started off in the year 2000, and it had the privilege of providing service not only to the people of West Bengal but also the neighboring districts in eastern India as well as the northeastern states, apart from countries like Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Myanmar and so forth. At the moment we have 613 beds, which is one of the highest in the city. We have 14 state-of-the-art OTs with 6 exclusively for cardiac surgeries, 3 cath labs, 1 pacemaker lab, 160 critical care beds, which is about double of what any other hospital has, and 28 bedded emergency department, and the next best number is actually close to about 10. So we are more than double when it comes to emergency department, and we have a good laboratory service the emergency department being so big is so important in actually getting into the emergency cardiac care, because we are in the heart care business, so any heart attacks or any other acute cardiac problems requires to have a good emergency services. You could have a big hospital with a lot of beds, but if your emergency services are not good, are not big, you will not be able to accommodate them. So, after actually the Rabindranath Tagore International Institute of Cardiac Sciences came to force, we get a lot of district patients to come. Now, this was my personal endeavor along with Dr. Shetty's ideas that we need to also focus on the underprivileged in urban settings. And this was one of the areas which I thought were important. This is the film fraternity where they have the technicians who were very, very low salaried and did not have any kind of insurance or people to look after them. Even the film fraternity, the artists who are in the older generations didn't have any health security with them. So we decided that we were going to issue them privileged health cards. We provided them with insurance. We tied them up with the artist forum where they actually pay a nominal fee for the insurance, and we delivered them privileged health cards. We actually have about 2,500 of these technicians from the film studios who are tied up with us. We have different kind of ventures in the urban areas where the underprivileged are looked after. And this was one of my passions from my childhood, cricket. So CAB, or Cricket Association of Bengal, is actually one of the richest board in the world in terms of the money. But the lowest rung, lowest denominator in this whole association were actually the ground staff, or the malis which we call them. And they are the people without whom the whole infrastructure of the game doesn't advance. But unfortunately, there were no insurances, no health checkups, no camps to look after them. So we decided actually to go into these areas, and recently we went with a free health camp and looked after these people in a very, very comprehensive manner. And we have also issued them with health cards, and we will look after them. So this was actually the whole idea behind how we looked into the healthcare business for the underprivileged sections of the urban media. The next focus was actually on the rural health, and my heading is actually the rural reluctance. So what do you mean by rural reluctance? Rural reluctance is actually by definition where trained doctors, trained medical professionals do not want to go to the rural settings to treat patients. The government of India, government of the different countries have tried their best to put these people like us who have just graduated, going into the rural settings. Unfortunately, because of different reasons, it is not only the pay scale, but because of the infrastructure which you have, because of the lack of facilities which they have, people like the young doctors, they do not want to go to the rural settings. People have tried, the government have tried penalizing them, it didn't work. The reasons we have to understand is, first of all, when you are in the classrooms, when you are graduating, you are actually exposed to the most of the advanced technologies which you have in the country. And suddenly from this area, you are thrown into the rural diaspora, the villages, where you are actually exposed to nothing. You don't have medicines, you have a patient in front of you who has multiple problems, and you have a stethoscope to just diagnose those problems. So it was, I thought, a huge disparity between the training which you received in your classrooms and suddenly you are exposed to the worst of the scenarios. So I believed always that the most experienced people, the most experienced doctors actually should go to the places in the rural settings where you have scarce availability of facilities. Your experience can actually deal with those problems. The inexperienced, the greenhorns, should be actually gradually developing experiences in the urban settings. So the rural health landscape is actually very scary. Of the 700 million people living in about 6 lakhs villages, 66% do not have any access to critical medicines. 31% of the population travels more than 30 kilometers to seek healthcare in rural India. So we do not know exactly what happens to the people when they have acute problems. Lack of basic investigation tools to diagnose heart problems, lack of awareness of heart-friendly habits and environments. Primary to secondary healthcare has very little focus on heart care, and 80% of the population in rural India is served by 20% medics with little or no infrastructure for basic healthcare. And here is the skew. We have 70 to 80% doctors in the urban area treating 20% of the patients, whereas the majority of the patients or population in the rural India have no doctors to look after. So what are the solutions to healthcare in rural India? These are my suggestions, which I thought that e-health is the only way forward. And it has to be done in a spoke and hub model, which I'm going to discuss or elaborate in a little while. The government organizations, the non-government organizations, the international agencies need to pull in the resources. You just cannot depend on any particular kind of organization. It has to be a pan across the whole globe. Any help is actually desirable, any help is welcome. And go hard on the awareness drive, keeping the socio-cultural issues in mind. When you travel into villages, when you travel into the rural areas, you will understand that there is a huge socio-cultural divide which divides the urban from the rural population, and that you have to keep in mind while you are dealing with this population. So my mentor, I would say, is Dr. Devi Shetty, who I know him since 1989, and we have shared a lot of dreams together in delivering quality, affordable healthcare for the Indians. And we joined hands in setting up the Rabindranath Tagore International Institute of Cardiac Sciences in 2000. And we share the same inspiration with Saint Teresa. I happened to be meeting her in 1996 or 96, I think, in one of the programs where we were together. And this was a beautiful thing she said, that not all of us can do great things, but we can all do small things with great love. And that is, I think, the key to what I believe and what inspired me to do what I try to do today. So this is actually a village called Moinapur, and it was my trusted destiny. It's in Bankura, which is a district of West Bengal. It is located 50 kilometers towards the east from the district headquarters of Bankura and 200 kilometers from Kolkata by train. The population census said there were about 19,853 people who live in Moinapur. The demographics of the health and the healthcare in Bankura is the population is about 35 lakhs, medical college of about 1, district hospital 1, rural hospital 5, primary health center 17, sub-center 508 and blood bank 1. Except the medical college, the rest of the other facilities, medical facilities, is very, very scarce in the district of Bankura. So as we travel into that place, these are the beautiful sceneries when we travel there, and these are some sites of that particular place. It is a very, very old village, about 350 years old. People like Vidyasagar, who are one of the luminaries of the world, actually have traveled there, and the buildings which you see on the top are about 300 years old, still standing. And if you see the bottom corner, this is the jungle areas which people have to travel to sometimes. So the nearest hospital is about 60 kilometers away. The primary health center is about 20 kilometers away. There is no ambulance, there is no registered medical practitioners, and the first camp which I did was in 2014. So when we did the first heart camp in 2014, we had about 250 patients who attended, and I was the first specialist who actually went into that village in their history. So after a couple of camps, we decided to form a registered foundation, and the name was Mainapur Rural Healthcare Foundation. We had all the components added into this name, and it was founded on the 15th of August 2015 by the people of Mainapur. We involved a lot of people of Mainapur, and it facilitates access to tertiary health care with the people of the Mainapur adjoining villages. Now this model is something which I am going to describe. The visions of Mainapur Rural Healthcare Foundation. The healthcare is the fundamental right of every citizen of India, and it's not about charity. This facilitates the delivery of the right to healthcare facilities for individuals of Mainapur and adjoining villages. This is in a very, very nascent stage, and this is more of an idea which we are trying to implement rather than what we have really achieved in the last couple of years. The objectives are reaching to the economically underprivileged rural heart patients, and we need to diagnose the treatable heart problems in the children and adults. Now this is where I have to say that diagnosis of a heart problem is so very important before you actually start treating them. If you don't know what you have, you don't know what to treat. You can have all kinds of statistics, all kinds of prevalence incidence reports about how much heart problems are in a particular area, but it's no good unless actually you diagnose them. And what the MRHF does is also to have a rural-urban connect, and the other important thing which we do is follow-up of the treated patients. So unlike the previous foundation, unlike what Dr. Shetty does, we are not into the business of treating patients surgically. We are more of a facilitator, we are more of a pick-up, diagnosis, and then to see what best can be done for them, and also more importantly to have these patients be followed up, because there is no facilities where actually the patients are seen by any doctor at any point of time in this particular village and the surroundings. The methodology has been again through heart camps, and I have a 24/7 communication lines open with particular couple of peoples there, and we have e-health and we facilitate. The dates of the heart camps are more or less fixed. We do it on public holidays. It's 26th of January, March, 15th of August, and during the Durga Puja. We have two colleagues of you who will be traveling with me on the 12th of October for having the heart camp there. The venue is actually a primary school which was established in 1868, and the headmaster or the principal of that school actually were always kind enough to give a school during these public holidays. So that's the venue of the heart camps. We do ECGs, we do the basic bloods, I do the consultations with my colleagues, and these are non-chargeable. And we have the pamphlets which we distribute for advertisements for the camps, for the dates of the camps, and also through the cable TV operators. These are some pictures of the heart camps. On the left hand side of the screen, we have this heart camp venue in the school, and I do a public awareness talk before the heart camp and sometimes after the heart camps. So people, I try to encourage them to come over, and we just talk about some basic issues, and it's more of an interactive session which we have. So these are the MRHF members. These are members who are originally from the village but are working definitely in some urban places, particularly some people in Calcutta and some in other areas of the country. And this is the meeting which will take place during the camps which we have, and this is the MRHF executive body meeting which is happening. This is a picture of that. The NH team consists of myself and my secretary and the heart camp coordinator and a couple of doctors from time to time. And this is one of the pictures of the camp which is undergoing in a classroom. So after that, we have come to the stage where we have collaboration with another NGO who were interested in the e-health. The e-health, I thought, were one of the important areas besides the heart camps where we can connect with these heart patients in the villages in a very consistent manner throughout the year. So we have coordinators, one at the Calcutta end, and we have a coordinator at the Moinapur end. We have a rural health practitioner at Moinapur. Now, what is a rural health practitioner? He is not a qualified doctor. He is actually one of the pharmacists who has been there for many, many years, and he knows the place, the area very well, and he is a very trusted individual there. And he does the screening of the patients. We have a cable broadband connection, and I see about 100 patients a month. This is one of the EOPD in progress. On your left hand side is the Calcutta end, and this is the Moinapur end, and this gentleman in the middle is the rural health practitioner. On the left hand side is the coordinator, and that is the young patient with his mother. I'll just show you a little video.
So, এখন এই মুহূর্তে কি আপনি হাঁটাচলা করতে পারছেন? আচ্ছা, ওষুধগুলো কি পাচ্ছেন একটু বলুন।
So, this was one of the little consultations which we do. It lasts about 10 minutes for each patient, and I send an e-prescription over to them, which is given out to them. So, what are the challenges with the MRHF? It was breaking the wall between the rural and the urban cultural divide. Unless we go to the rural areas of India, it will be very, very difficult to understand what is the wall which we actually have. Other thing was the integration of the society through social participation. We needed to participate, I thought was important with these people to gain the trust with the common people. So again, I used cricket as one of the areas through which I participated wholeheartedly with the community, particularly the younger generations. So every time we went there, we tried to have a cricket match, and it was a huge success actually. And at the end of the camps, we have a community dinner where we invite all the locals as much as possible, and we all have a dinner at the end of the camps. So the media progress was, I have written articles about Moinapur, about what we do in Times of India. This was one of the articles which was published only last week in one of the magazines, Desh, in Kolkata, and the other article is in Anandabazar Patrika. Also, different television programs over the last few weeks and months, I have discussed about our foundation and the way it works. We have some luminaries who actually have supported us. Out of the ones you probably know, Saurabh Ganguly, we have Dr. Devi Shetty, we have film fraternity, Soumitra Chattopadhyay and Prosenjit Chatterjee, we have singers, Shakatalokhi and Rotuti, and we have writers like Shishendra Mukhopadhyay and Avanita Devshan, and this cardiologist actually who I worked with, the head of the department at Singapore. These are the people who have, like many others, who have actually supported our venture. So the structure and functionality we quickly go through. We have a chief patron with myself, we have board of trustees, we have executive body members, general body members, and invited members. This is an autonomous institution, it's a non-government, partially self-funded, it's got health-based activity primarily on heart. We conduct heart camps, we have e-health programs, and we are holding hands with corporates by the corporate social responsibility programs. The model is facilitating free heart camps and public awareness campaigns in association with NH-RTISS to facilitate free OPD consultation to tertiary care heart specialists. Funding is self-funding so far with some CSR funding from the multinational companies. The links are with Narayana Health for medical manpower and subsidized treatment. The government health projects like Sishu Shati program, which is one of the interesting programs. Anybody below the age of 18 actually are entitled to have free heart operations under this program. So it is so very important that the children are picked up with proper heart disease who are enrolled in the program. If you do not know that somebody has a heart problem, this program is of no good. And we refer patients to the government tertiary care hospitals for surgical treatment, which is also at a very, very low cost. So the annual report card of 2015-16 is we have seen about 1,200 heart patients since October 2014. The EOPD started twice a week, seeing about 40 to 50 patients a month, and approximately 2,000 heart patients per year would receive access to tertiary care heart facilities, and we have health awareness talks prior to each camps. So I have a message from Dr. Shetty on September 12, 2016, where he says that I would like to congratulate Manipur Rural Healthcare Foundation for organizing heart camps to screen patients for heart disease since 2014. He believes that I'm sure hundreds of patients are benefited by the heart camps organized by MRHF, and I wish many more organizations in the country follow the example of MRHF. And I'd like to thank all the trustees or organizers of the heart camps under the MRHF and our doctors who actively participate in these camps. So this is a very encouraging message which we received from Dr. Shetty himself. So today we have 4 heart camps a year, EOPD on a regular basis. We diagnose heart problems, we follow up patients, and we have seen about 1,200 patients. Looking ahead, what we would like to acquire is diagnostic facilities like basic blood tests, ECG machines, X-ray machines, so that we can subsidize the cost for the tests, CSR funding from the MNC, and we hope for some grants as well. The way forward has to be innovation of work process required rather than new technological development. I always believed in that. The funding models again has to be self-sustained rather than depending on donations. And since the work is more on diagnostics and follow-up based expenditure, and infrastructure cost is expected to be low. The way forward again is involvement of more like-minded professionals, training of paramedics as with Arvind at local level. Because if you train the paramedics at the local level, you have a chance of high participation of these people. If you have people going over from cities, the chances that it will probably wean off after a while. So that we are already tying up with some government institutions who are going to train these paramedics. Need to identify specialty hospitals who provide quality care at a subsidized cost in the vicinity, and obviously the micro insurance, which is one of the very important areas which Dr. Shetty's model has very successfully done in Bangalore with the farmers. This is the untold story before I sign off. This is a 12-year-old girl who came to see, who came actually with her grandfather who needed to be shown in the camp, and she was just presenting a flower to me. So when I saw her, I thought she was a little underdeveloped for a 12-year-old or 11-year-old girl. So I asked her father as to how is she, and he said that she was absolutely okay, except that she didn't participate in any sports or any activities in the schools. So when I examined her, I found a murmur in her heart. So the first time actually any doctor has seen her. And then we brought her over, we did an echocardiography, and we found that she actually has a hole in the heart. She came with her grandfather, and now she was a patient. She has been operated last month under the Sishu Shati program without any cost, and she is well today. This is one of the stories which I thought I'd like to share with you, and many more stories of a similar kind are going to evolve in the next few years. So to conclude, this is a very humble beginning, and this journey is to continue. Thank you.
Questions, please. So you talk about you like to attract the best doctors in rural areas. Do you know how you can do this? Because you told us that they were lower income, for them, and do you have?
Yeah, actually what I tried to say that ours is going to be more of a diagnostics. We need to pick up problems rather than, the treating problems. So even if we have doctors with basic qualification, we don't need very highly skilled doctors to do that. So basically we require these persons to come with me and diagnose the problems with the ECGs, the echocardiograms, the X-rays, and once we have the diagnosis done, we have a process through which they can actually go to different areas and have treatment done either free of cost or at a subsidized cost. So the NH group which I work with, we have plenty of doctors and we have heart camps on a very, very regular basis. So I do not have any problems in acquiring these junior doctors to travel with me for the heart camps.
In the clips you showed, you were connecting to the patients in real time, and I suppose the patients were from villages. So, and I think in most of the villages there is the issue of connectivity in terms of there is no proper internet connection. So how do you cope up with that challenge?
You'll be very surprised to know actually that a lot of villages actually have proper connectivity now. Only thing that we don't utilize it for the proper reasons. Because a lot of villages, they have people who are actually working in the urban cities now. Particularly this village which is so remote has a 4 Mbps connection where I work with. You have people with smartphones there, but no health access. So that is a huge gap which we need to bridge. So I thought that the communication areas which we have today in WhatsApp, in Skype and other video conferencing, to utilize that to the best of the effect to solve this problem.
It's not regard to Mohinapur Rural Health Foundation, it's regard to Dr. Shetty. So you talked about his leadership style. I wanted to know what makes people stick with him.
Stick with Dr. Shetty. I think it's a belief, one thing is that, there are a couple of reasons I think, when you start off with him, you will not get a better exposure in terms of numbers and volumes and the independence compared to say any other private hospitals.
But my thing is that they stick for lifetime.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. So this is the beginning. So once you have acquired the skill and once you are comfortable with the volumes, you would rather like to stay in a place who has given you the start rather than going somewhere else. We have people who have gone elsewhere and actually have come back. Because in corporate hospitals, it's a very tough life. But I don't want to, say all these things, but there are few difficulties which people face in typical corporate hospitals, where you have targets to achieve, and I don't believe in medical targets. I never believed in it. So this is one hospital or one institution under his leadership, under his vision, where we do not have targets. We have actually more targets than what we can actually do. The workload which we have is much higher compared to any other hospitals in the country, I would believe, in the private sector. And if you talk to Dr. Shetty, it's very difficult to say no to him. That's one of his challenges, it's a very magnetic personality he has.
Considering the size of Narendra Modi right now,
Yeah.
people who join at a very initial level, they might end up leaving the hospital after gaining experience.
No, we are not, it's not that we are badly paid, except that we have to work hard. Now, everybody wants to work hard, I believe, any doctor who has work in his hand would like to work hard. I think if you are not doing anything, that's the worst thing as a medical professional. If you didn't have much work in your hand. And the other thing I'd like to say is that if you ever have to do an NGO or these kind of activities, it's better to do it when you are at the peak of your prowess, rather than when you are retired. Because today, at my physical activity level, at my mental acumen, I think I'm at the peak of my prowess. And I have the contacts, I have all the necessary things which is required. When you retire at the age of 60, 70, 70, 75, everything will diminish. And I think you require a leader who actually is at the peak.
Yes. How do actually the poorest children, poorest patients to finance their care? Do you speak about insurance or?
No, as I mentioned, for the children we don't have a problem because we have a government scheme where every child under the age of 18 is assured of free heart surgeries. And those surgeries are done in private hospitals and government hospitals. So there is no issue on that at all. All we have to do is to pick up and to diagnose the problem. And from there on, there is a process which is absolutely free of cost.
Now coming back to the organization structure, the structure of Narayan Vidyalaya, you are saying that everyone is not given any target or they don't have any set objectives to meet. That
Financial targets, I mean. We don't need to think about that. We need to see patients. We need to operate, but we don't have any financial targets to meet.
You probably know what are financial targets in hospitals. There are pharmacy bills. We don't need to mention those. Some of them are fictitious, discovered only after the patient dies. So that's part of the.
We walk into the hospital, put our scrub suits, and by the time we are finished, it's evening. We don't know actually anything else. When we meet with administration, it's always actually about putting pressure on them to subsidize things. It is not the other way around.
And how is it if we are putting pressure on them, then how is it financially viable?
That's up to you to solve.
No, but
It's a volume thing. See, at the end of the day, as I mentioned, when you are spending 5 crores on a machine, just imagine that you are putting up a cath lab in a hospital which is going to cost you about 15-20 crores, and 5 crores you are going to put on the machine. And today, Narayana Vidyalaya has the power of actually not buying that machine at all. They just park the machine there and you profit share.
Again, in that parking a machine, what I have believed is like renting a machine is.
It's not rent, it's a kind of profit share.
it's volumes. With Arvind, with Narayan Vidyalaya, it is a volume game. If the volume is not there, the whole thing would collapse. I think it's volume, and the other thing is inspiration. In this course, we can actually talk about the fact we have management theories of motivation. But what is at play here is inspiration. As Dr. Dev said, Saint Teresa, Mother Teresa rather, inspired Dr. Devi Shetty. And he dreamt in his own way. So after that dream, and see how he's catalyzed it. Dr. Dev could have just been a good doctor in RTIICS, very successful. He's already a very successful cardiologist, very well known in India and the world, and presented papers at conferences. Instead, he's going to rural Bengal, trying to set up a new experiment. If that succeeds, it could be a scalable model for the whole state, for many remote villages. So see the catalytic effect of one leader, one Mother Teresa catalyzing so many things. So that is very important. The leadership in this domain is very different from corporate leadership. It's a virtuous cycle you build. He's saying that you put pressure on administration to subsidize. So there is a constant thing, how can I do more for the poor? How can I do more for the underprivileged? How can I stretch my resources? This is a lovely environment to work.
Yes, absolutely. Because you see, when we talk of subsidization to the management, the first thing they will hit me is on my fees. And if I am prepared to actually forego the fees, you have very little chance of saying no to me.
Yeah.
What are the possible challenges of e-health care system in developing countries, or do you think it is the only way forward?
Yeah, because given the disparity of the number of doctors required by the World Health Organization, WHO, and the number of doctors we have, I believe, and the other problem is that people or the doctors from the city don't want to go into the rural areas for different reasons, for different valid reasons. So e-health is something which I can sit at the comfort of my chamber in my hospital, and they are sitting at their end, and we can discuss the same thing. That's number one. Number two, for a 15-minute consultation, you have to travel say 200 kilometers from where you are to see me in my outdoor, in OPD. And what you're doing is in fact cramming up spaces for more new patients to be seen. If I see 50 patients, because I have a limit of how many patients I can see a day, maybe 50, maybe 100. Out of that, if 70% patients are my old patients, then you are actually depriving 70 more new patients to be seen. So if I can see these patients for them without traveling there and in my own time, then it's much easier and it's a better model, I believe, which is going to come in the years to come.
There was somebody else who had a question? Yeah.
Do you know, you explained that part of your funding comes from CSR activities by multinational companies. Do you know the approximate share of the total funds that is coming from these CSR activities?
It's about 50-50 now.
50-50.
Yeah, 50% from there and 50% self-funded.
Okay.
For the e-health camps, were you able to connect with the other urban cardiologists?
No, it's in a very nascent stage. I do the whole e-consultation right now, and once I think that the number exceeds what I can do, more people will join in. And it's something which I believe that I want this fire to ignite more minds, rather than it could be a different model, but if it's a kind of a similar model, people will benefit, I believe.
Yes.
Are the doctors adapting to e-care using this technology?
E-health is not new. E-health is pretty, it's been happening for quite some time, the telecardiology and e-health. And only the conferences on a global level is happening for the last 4 or 5 years. But whether other doctors are doing it with such rural practice or not, I'm not very sure. Particularly in Bengal, this is the first time this is happening, that we're connecting with such rural masses. We'll see how it goes, I mean, we're not sure, I'm not sure how things are, but acceptance has been very good, particularly in the place where I go, and now we're covering a population of close to about 15 lakhs. The area from where the patients are coming now, but to this particular Manapur area.
Yes.
So another challenges of e-health will be most of in doctors will need them to have personal touch and see how in-person impact is. And suppose a person needs additional care, how do you look after that after e-health? If you're not able to diagnose or within those 15 minutes, how do you see that follow-up happens, or how do you see the person?
Yeah, I mean, what we are trying to do is get these patients to our hospital. And this particular village where I go, they have a bus service which comes from the village to Calcutta twice a day. And the owner of that bus service, actually, he's one of my patients, and he has told that any patients who come from his village or surroundings to Calcutta and going back, he's not going to charge them. So we have more people, it's all about good people on this earth, which creates this earth and keeps it going.
Okay, we need to conclude now. Before we conclude, I'll just share a little story. Dr. Dev talked about compelling personal histories. Since the group didn't mention it, Dr. V started his journey when he was a 5 or 6 year old boy. In the village, in the house next, a pregnant woman died. And that made that little 5-year-old, 6-year-old child sit up and think, why does a lady have to die while giving childbirth? So much so that he persisted. He persisted so much that he became a trained obstetrician. And look at that, his rheumatism, which would have crippled anybody else, didn't cripple him. He started after retirement and built the largest eye care facility in the world. Look at today, Dr. Devi Prasad Shetty, personal physician of Mother Teresa for a few years, created a vision that went far beyond his original scheme of being just a good cardiac surgeon. It's benefiting so many people in this country and even beyond. And more important, look at the catalytic effect that it's generating And today Dr. Shetty is complimenting Moinapur Rural Health Foundation for the outreach programs it's generating, because it's another new dimension beyond what he's already trying to do. So look at the ripple effect, the virtuous cycle, the inspiration and the kind of leadership and the kind of world that NGOs live in. A very warm note of thanks to you, Dr. Dev,
Thank you so much.
making this, you could show your passion came alive. I'm sure it ignited a few minds here, I hope so at least, to do something beyond your normal call of duty when you are in your business life and be a great messenger of change. If you can bring change in however little way in your lives, it will not just benefit you and your families, but you will be thanked by hundreds of thousands of people who will smile after they receive whatever they receive. Can I just ask you to come? A small little token of our appreciation. It's very little, but Dr. Dev today he's deprived many patients in our TIICS because he had to come and see.